Think she can even diagnose that transmission problem, Rodriguez muttered to Corporal Hayes while watching Sergeant Elena Vasquez slide under the Humvee. $20, says she calls for backup within the hour. Hayes chuckled and shook his head, already imagining the inevitable request for help that would prove what they all knew about letting women handle real mechanical work. The motor pool at Camp Pendleton buzzed with the constant hum of diesel engines and pneumatic tools, but Elena had learned to tune out everything except the mechanical symphony that spoke to her in ways her colleagues would never understand. Transmission fluid dripped steadily onto the concrete beneath her, each drop marking time as she traced the source of the grinding noise that had stumped 3 other mechanics this week. She can barely lift a wrench properly, Staff Sergeant Morrison observed from his position near the parts counter, loud enough for the gathered mechanics to hear. Watch her struggle with those torque specifications. Rodriguez nodded in agreement, both men positioning themselves with clear sight lines to witness what they assumed would be another demonstration of technical inadequacy. Elena's calloused hands moved with precision through the transmission housing, her fingertips reading metal surfaces like braille, identifying where patterns and stress points that escaped casual observation. The scars across her knuckles told stories her colleagues attributed to clumsy tool handling, never imagining the true origin of marks left by specialized equipment under conditions they could never fathom. Before we dive into Elena's story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you've witnessed similar underestimation of technical skills in your community, where assumptions about capability proved completely wrong. Morrison approached her position, clipboard in hand, his boots crunching on scattered bolts and metal shavings. You understand this is a priority repair, Sergeant? The Colonel needs this vehicle operational by 1400 hours. His tone carried the weight of expected failure, as if he were already preparing paperwork to explain the delay caused by assigning the job to someone clearly out of her depth. Found it, Elena called from beneath the chassis, her voice steady despite the condescending attention focused on her position. The torque converter clutch is slipping, and there's scoring on the valve body. She rolled out from under the vehicle, hydraulic fluid staining her uniform, holding a damaged component that gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. Rodriguez exchanged glances with Hayes, both men surprised by the specific diagnosis delivered with such confidence. Morrison frowned at the part in her hands, clearly not expecting such rapid identification of the problem. How can you be certain without running full diagnostics? He challenged, his skepticism evident in the way he emphasized each word. Elena wiped her hands on a shop rag, leaving dark smears that contrasted sharply with the methodical precision of her movements. The wear pattern on the friction material shows classic high-mileage degradation, and the metal scoring indicates contaminated fluid circulation. She gestured towards specific areas of damage invisible to untrained eyes. This unit has been slipping for weeks, probably started as minor chatter during acceleration. The motor pool fell unusually quiet as other mechanics paused their work to listen, most expecting her confident assessment to crumble under technical scrutiny. Morrison's expression remained doubtful as he examined the component she'd extracted, clearly searching for evidence that would support his preconceived notions about her mechanical abilities. Hayes leaned closer to Rodriguez, lowering his voice, but not enough to prevent Elena from overhearing his comment. Probably just got lucky identifying obvious damage. Wait until she tries to actually rebuild that transmission. Rodriguez nodded, both men settling in to watch what they anticipated would be a lengthy demonstration of technical incompetence. Elena gathered the specialized tools required for transmission rebuilding, her movements economical and purposeful in ways that suggested familiarity beyond standard military mechanical training. Each wrench and gauge found its place in her hands with the fluid precision of someone who had performed similar work under far more demanding conditions than a routine motor pool repair. Morrison checked his watch with obvious impatience, clearly expecting the rebuild process to stretch well beyond the Colonel's deadline. You have 6 hours to complete this repair, Sergeant. If you encounter difficulties, don't hesitate to request assistance from more experienced personnel. His emphasis on the word experienced left no doubt about his opinion regarding her technical qualifications. The transmission case split open under Elena's careful attention, revealing internal components arranged in complex mechanical relationships that told the complete story of the unit's failure. Her hands moved through the assembly with surgeon-like precision, identifying damaged parts and assessing replacement requirements with speed that began to draw curious attention from mechanics throughout the facility. "She's going to strip those bolt threads for sure," Corporal Hayes whispered to Private Shun, while Elena positioned her torque wrench at the precise angle required for the transmission case reassembly. $50, says she over-torques at least 3 fasteners. Shun grinned and pulled out his wallet, confident that betting against Elena's technical abilities represented easy money. Elena's movements remained methodical despite the gathering audience of skeptical mechanics who had found excuses to work in proximity to her repair bay. The precision with which she aligned each component spoke to training that extended far beyond standard military vehicle maintenance, though her colleagues interpreted her careful approach as uncertainty rather than expertise. Staff Sergeant Morrison returned from his office carrying a thick technical manual, dropping it loudly on the workbench beside Elena's position. "Thought you might need the official procedures, Sergeant. These transmissions can be tricky for mechanics without extensive experience on this particular model." His tone suggested helpful guidance, while his expression conveyed doubt about her ability to complete the rebuild without constant reference to written instructions. Elena glanced at the manual without reaching for it, her hands continuing their precise work through the gear train assembly. Each planetary gear set found its proper position under her guidance, the complex mechanical relationships falling into place with the fluid ease of someone who understood these systems at an intuitive level that transcended textbook knowledge. Rodriguez positioned himself near the hydraulic lift controls, clearly expecting to witness the inevitable moment when Elena would request assistance with components too heavy or complex for her to handle alone. His confident posture suggested a man prepared to step in and demonstrate proper mechanical technique to someone obviously out of her depth. The valve body required microscopic attention to detail, with tiny springs and check balls that could disappear forever if mishandled during installation. Elena's scarred fingers navigated the intricate assembly with surgeon-like precision, each component finding its designated location without hesitation or reference to the technical diagrams that most mechanics required for such delicate work. "Watch her fumble with that valve body," Morrison predicted to his assembled audience. "Those springs will go flying everywhere when she tries to compress them without proper technique." The gathered mechanics nodded in agreement, positioning themselves to witness what they anticipated would be a spectacular demonstration of mechanical incompetence. Elena compressed the valve body springs with a specialized tool, her movements controlled and deliberate in ways that suggested familiarity with precision mechanical work under demanding conditions. The assembly clicked into place with satisfying precision, each component secured exactly where engineering specifications required for optimal transmission function. Hayes checked his watch with growing impatience, clearly expecting the rebuild process to bog down in technical difficulties that would vindicate his skeptical assessment of Elena's abilities. "She's been working on that same section for 20 minutes, he observed to Chun. "Real mechanics would have that valve body installed in half the time." The hydraulic pump assembly required careful alignment of multiple components, with tolerance specifications measured in thousands of inches. Elena's hands moved through the installation process with mechanical sympathy that reflected deeper understanding than routine maintenance training typically provided, though her colleagues attributed her deliberate pace to confusion rather than precision. Morrison approached her workstation again, this time carrying a different technical manual. "These hydraulic pumps have specific torque sequences, Sergeant. Most mechanics need to follow the step-by-step procedures to avoid costly mistakes." He opened the manual to the relevant section, clearly expecting Elena to acknowledge her need for written guidance. Elena continued her work without looking at the offered manual, Her attention focused on the subtle mechanical feedback that told her when each component had achieved proper seating and alignment. The pump assembly slid into position with the smooth precision of perfectly matched engineering tolerances, clicking into place with satisfying mechanical certainty. She probably memorized some basic procedures, Rodriguez suggested to his audience of skeptical observers. Wait until something goes wrong and she has to actually troubleshoot under pressure. That's when you separate real mechanics from people just following instructions. His confident assessment drew nods of agreement from mechanics who had already decided Elena's apparent competence represented lucky guessing rather than genuine skill. The final assembly stages required integration of electronic control modules with mechanical components, creating complex relationships between hydraulic pressure, electrical signals, and mechanical movement. Elena's hands moved through the connection process with practiced efficiency, each wire harness and sensor finding its proper location without hesitation or reference to technical documentation. Hayes leaned closer to Chun, lowering his voice but remaining audible to Elena's position. $10 says she has to call the electronic specialist before she gets those control modules working properly. Chin nodded eagerly, both men convinced that electronic troubleshooting would expose the limits of Elena's technical knowledge. Elena powered up the transmission control system, her fingers dancing across diagnostic interfaces with the fluid competence of someone who understood electronic systems at levels beyond basic mechanical training. Warning lights blinked through their startup sequences before settling into steady operational status, indicating successful integration of all mechanical and electronic components. Morrison frowned at the diagnostic display, showing green status indicators across all transmission functions, clearly not expecting such rapid success from someone he considered technically inadequate. Run the full diagnostic cycle, Sergeant. These systems can show false positives if the installation isn't completely correct. His skeptical tone suggested he still expected hidden problems to surface under comprehensive testing. The diagnostic cycle revealed perfect pressure readings, smooth gear transitions, and optimal torque converter operation throughout the complete range of transmission functions. Elena stepped back from the completed repair, hydraulic fluid still staining her uniform, while her colleagues stared at diagnostic results that contradicted every assumption they had made about her technical capabilities. Lucky break on that transmission, Rodriguez announced to the morning shift mechanics as Elena approached her assigned work bay. Wait until she gets something really challenging, like that Bradley fighting vehicle with the engine knock. $20 says she can't even identify the problem source without calling for backup. Hayes nodded enthusiastically, both men convinced that Elena's previous success represented beginner's luck rather than genuine mechanical expertise. The Bradley sat silent in the corner bay, its massive diesel engine having developed a mysterious knocking sound that had stumped two experienced mechanics over the past week. Staff Sergeant Morrison approached Elena's position carrying a thick diagnostic manual, his expression suggesting helpful guidance while his tone conveyed skepticism about her ability to succeed where others had failed. "This is a complex power plant, Sergeant," Morrison explained while gesturing toward the intimidating engine compartment. The previous mechanics ran compression tests, checked fuel injection timing, and inspected the valve train without finding the source. He emphasized each technical term as if Elena might not understand advanced diagnostic procedures. Elena lifted the heavy engine hood with practiced ease, her movements revealing upper body strength that surprised observing mechanics who had assumed her compact frame indicated physical limitations. The diesel engine's compartment stretched before her like a mechanical puzzle, with hundreds of components arranged in complex relationships that could hide problems in countless locations. "She's going to waste hours checking obvious things first," Private Chun predicted to his gathered audience. Real mechanics would start with advanced diagnostics instead of basic visual inspection. Rodriguez agreed, both men positioning themselves to witness what they expected would be a lengthy demonstration of systematic confusion. Elena's scarred hands moved through the engine compartment with purposeful precision, her fingertips reading vibration patterns and temperature variations that spoke volumes about internal mechanical conditions. She traced fuel lines, electrical connections, and hydraulic fittings with the methodical approach of someone who understood these systems at levels beyond routine maintenance training. Morrison returned carrying an electronic diagnostic scanner, setting it prominently on the workbench beside Elena's position. These computerized tools will give you the data you need, Sergeant. Most mechanics rely on electronic analysis rather than trying to diagnose complex problems through guesswork. His helpful tone masked obvious doubt about her technical sophistication. Elena continued her Hansen inspection without reaching for the offered diagnostic equipment. Her attention focused on subtle mechanical indicators that electronic sensors often missed. Her ears detected irregularities in the engine's idle rhythm that suggested problems beyond simple component failure, though her colleagues interpreted her methodical approach as uncertainty rather than thoroughness. "Watch her struggle with that fuel injection system," Hayes whispered to Chun while Elena examined the high-pressure fuel rail assembly. "Those injection pumps require specialized knowledge that you don't get from basic mechanic training." Chun nodded confidently, both men convinced that advanced diesel technology would expose the limits of Elena's expertise. Elena's movements around the fuel system revealed familiarity with high-pressure injection components that extended beyond standard military vehicle maintenance. Her hands navigated the complex array of sensors, actuators, and pressure regulators with practiced confidence, though observing mechanics attributed her careful examination to confusion rather than systematic diagnostic methodology. The engine knock occurred most prominently during specific RPM ranges, creating acoustic signatures that provided crucial clues about the problem's location and severity. Elena positioned herself at various points around the engine compartment, using her trained ear to triangulate the sound source with precision that impressed even skeptical observers. "She's probably just following some checklist she memorized," Rodriguez suggested to Morrison while Elena continued her methodical examination. "Wait until she has to actually fix whatever she finds. That's when you separate real mechanics from people who just know how to look busy." Morrison nodded agreement, both men convinced that diagnostic success would only highlight Elena's inability to perform actual repairs. Elena traced the knocking sound to its source within the engine's lower end, her experienced ear identifying bearing where patterns that created specific acoustic signatures under load conditions. The problem required accessing components deep within the engine block, a complex procedure that would test every aspect of her mechanical knowledge and physical capability. Morrison approached her position again, this time carrying paperwork that suggested alternative solutions. "This repair might require engine removal for complete disassembly, Sergeant. Perhaps we should consider sending this vehicle to the depot maintenance facility where they have specialized equipment and experienced technicians." His suggestion carried implications about Elena's technical limitations. Elena knelt beside the engine block, her hands exploring access points that would allow bearing inspection without complete engine removal. Her movements suggested familiarity with field repair techniques that maximize mechanical access while minimizing disassembly time, though her colleagues interpreted her exploratory approach as indecision about proper repair procedures. Hayes checked his watch with obvious impatience, clearly expecting Elena's diagnostic process to bog down in technical difficulties that would vindicate his skeptical assessment. "She's been poking around that engine for over an hour without identifying anything specific. Real mechanics would have concrete answers by now, not vague theories about bearing problems." The bearing inspection required specialized tools and precise measurement techniques to determine where patterns and clearance specifications. Elena gathered the necessary equipment with practiced efficiency, her tool selection revealing knowledge of measurement procedures that extended beyond basic mechanical training, though observers remained convinced of her technical inadequacy. Chun leaned closer to Rodriguez, lowering his voice while remaining audible to Elena's position. $50 says she damages something trying to access those bearings. This job requires experience she obviously doesn't have. Rodriguez eagerly accepted the bet, both men convinced that complex engine work would expose Elena's limitations. She's going to strip those bearing caps for sure, Corporal Hayes predicted while Elena positioned her precision measuring tools around the exposed crankshaft assembly. Those tolerances are measured in thousandths, way beyond what basic mechanics can handle. Private Chun nodded confidently, both men convinced that precision bearing work would finally expose Elena's technical limitations in spectacular fashion. Elena's scarred fingers manipulated the micrometer with practiced precision, reading measurements that revealed the complete story of bearing wear patterns and clearance specifications. Each number she recorded told part of a mechanical narrative that explained months of gradual deterioration leading to the current knocking symptoms, though her colleagues interpreted her methodical documentation as uncertainty about proper diagnostic procedures. Staff Sergeant Morrison returned from the parts department carrying a requisition form and wearing an expression of helpful concern. These bearing repairs require specialized components that might take weeks to arrive, Sergeant. Perhaps we should consider alternative solutions that don't involve such complex engine work. His suggestion carried clear implications about Elena's ability to successfully complete precision mechanical repairs. Elena continued her bearing measurements without acknowledging Morrison's implied escape route. Her attention focused on clearance specifications that would determine whether repair or replacement represented the optimal solution. The precision required for bearing work demanded mechanical skills that most technicians developed only through years of specialized training and hands-on experience. Watch her struggle with those clearance calculations, Rodriguez whispered to his gathered audience, while Elena consulted technical specifications. Real mechanics know those numbers by heart, instead of constantly checking reference materials. Hayes agreed enthusiastically, both men positioning themselves to witness what they anticipated would be prolonged confusion about tolerance requirements. Elena's calculations revealed that bearing wear had exceeded acceptable limits by margins that required immediate replacement rather than attempted repair. Her assessment demonstrated understanding of engineering tolerances that extended beyond routine maintenance knowledge, though observing mechanics attributed her reference checking to inexperience with precision measurement procedures. Morrison approached her position carrying a different manual, this one focused on engine removal procedures. These bearing replacements typically require complete engine disassembly, Sergeant. The specialized equipment and workspace requirements might exceed our current facility capabilities. His technical explanation suggested helpful guidance, while clearly questioning Elena's ability to attempt such complex work. Elena examined the engine compartment access points with systematic thoroughness, her experience identifying opportunities for bearing replacement without complete engine removal. Her approach suggested familiarity with field repair techniques that maximize mechanical access while minimizing disassembly time, though colleagues interpreted her exploratory examination as confusion about proper procedures. She's way over her head now, Chin observed to Rodriguez while Elena gathered specialized tools for bearing replacement work. This job requires experience with precision assembly that basic mechanics simply don't have. Rodriguez nodded agreement, both men convinced that Elena's apparent confidence would crumble under the pressure of actual precision work. The bearing replacement process demanded millimeter-perfect alignment of multiple components while maintaining precise torque specifications throughout the assembly sequence. Elena's movements revealed mechanical sympathy that reflected deeper understanding than routine training typically provided, though skeptical observers remained convinced of her technical inadequacy despite mounting evidence. Hayes positioned himself near the tool crib, clearly expecting Elena to request equipment she didn't know how to use properly. Real mechanics come prepared with the right tools instead of improvising their way through complex procedures. His confident assessment drew nods from other mechanics who had already decided Elena's methodical approach represented incompetence rather than thoroughness. Elena's hands worked through the bearing installation sequence with surgeon-like precision, each component finding its designated position without hesitation or reference to technical diagrams. The complex mechanical relationships fell into place under her guidance with fluid ease that began to draw curious attention from mechanics throughout the motor pool facility. Morrison returned carrying paperwork that suggested alternative repair strategies. These precision assemblies have specific break-in procedures that require specialized knowledge. Sergeant, perhaps we should consider consulting with more experienced technicians before proceeding with final assembly. His helpful tone masked growing surprise at Elena's apparent competence with advanced mechanical work. The torque specifications for bearing cap installation required sequential tightening patterns that distributed stress evenly across the entire assembly. Elena's movements through the torque sequence revealed familiarity with precision assembly techniques that extended far beyond basic mechanical training. Though observing colleagues continued attributing her success to lucky guessing rather than genuine expertise. Rodriguez checked his watch with obvious impatience, clearly expecting the complex assembly process to bog down in technical difficulties that would vindicate his skeptical assessment. She's been working on those bearings for 3 hours without calling for help. Stubborn pride will cause expensive mistakes when she finally admits she's over her head. Elena completed the bearing installation with methodical precision, her attention focused on assembly details that ensured optimal performance under demanding operational conditions. Each component achieved perfect alignment under her guidance, creating mechanical relationships that would provide reliable service for thousands of operating hours. Chen leaned closer to Hayes, lowering his voice while remaining audible to Elena's position. $20 says the engine won't even start after all that work. Real mechanics would have completed this job hours ago with better results. Hayes eagerly accepted the bet, both men convinced that Elena's prolonged assembly process indicated fundamental incompetence with precision mechanical work. The engine turned over smoothly on the first attempt, its powerful diesel rhythm purring with mechanical precision that surprised every skeptical observer in the motor pool. Corporal Hayes stared at the diagnostic display, showing perfect pressure readings across all systems, clearly not expecting Elena's bearing replacement to result in such flawless engine performance. "That's just beginner's luck," Rodriguez muttered to Private Chun, while Elena conducted post-repair diagnostic tests. "Wait until she gets assigned to the Abrams tank with the transmission problems. Those M182 powertrains will expose her limitations in ways these simple repairs never could." Chen nodded enthusiastically, both men convinced that truly complex mechanical challenges would finally reveal Elena's technical inadequacy. Staff Sergeant Morrison approached Elena's position carrying a new work order, his expression mixing surprise at her recent success with continued skepticism about her overall mechanical capabilities. "Sergeant Vasquez, we have a priority repair on the Abrams in Base 7. The transmission is exhibiting intermittent power loss during acceleration." His tone suggested this assignment represented a significant escalation in technical difficulty. Elena gathered her tools with practiced efficiency, her movements revealing no hesitation about tackling what most mechanics considered the most challenging repair assignment in the motor pool. The M182 Abrams tank represented the pinnacle of armored vehicle technology, with powertrains that demanded expertise beyond routine mechanical training to diagnose and repair effectively. "She'll spend days just figuring out how to access the transmission components," Hayes predicted to his gathered audience while Elena approached the massive tank. "Those Abrams powertrains require specialized knowledge that basic mechanics simply don't possess." Rodriguez agreed confidently, both men positioning themselves to witness what they anticipated would be Elena's most spectacular failure yet. The Abrams tank dominated Bay 7 like a mechanical mountain, its massive bulk intimidating even experienced mechanics who understood the complexity hidden beneath its armored exterior. Elena circled the vehicle with systematic thoroughness, her trained eye identifying access points and potential problem areas with methodical precision that suggested familiarity beyond casual observation. Morrison returned carrying technical manuals specific to Abrams powertrains, dropping them prominently on the workbench beside Elena's position. These systems are incredibly complex, Sergeant. Most mechanics need constant reference to official procedures when working on M1A2 transmissions. His helpful gesture carried clear implications about Elena's need for extensive technical guidance. Elena examined the transmission access panels with practiced confidence, her scarred hands tracing hydraulic lines and electrical connections that formed complex networks throughout the vehicle's drivetrain. Her movements suggested understanding of systems integration that extended far beyond basic mechanical training, though observing colleagues attributed her methodical approach to uncertainty about proper diagnostic procedures. "Watch her struggle with those hydraulic pressure tests," Chen whispered to Rodriguez while Elena prepared specialized diagnostic equipment. Abrams transmissions operate at pressures that can seriously injure inexperienced mechanics. Rodriguez nodded agreement, both men convinced that advanced hydraulic systems would expose dangerous gaps in Elena's technical knowledge. Elena's hands moved through the hydraulic diagnostic sequence with surgeon-like precision, her movements revealing familiarity with high-pressure systems that demanded respect and expertise to handle safely. Each connection she made followed proper safety protocols while maximizing diagnostic accuracy, though skeptical observers remained convinced of her technical inadequacy. The intermittent power loss symptoms required sophisticated diagnostic techniques to isolate problems that occurred only under specific operating conditions. Elena positioned monitoring equipment at strategic points throughout the transmission system, creating a comprehensive diagnostic network that would capture transient failures invisible to casual observation. "She's way over her head with this diagnostic complexity," Hayes observed to Morrison while Elena calibrated pressure sensors throughout the hydraulic system. Real Abrams mechanics would have identified the problem area by now instead of setting up all this unnecessary monitoring equipment. Morrison nodded skeptically, both men convinced that Elena's elaborate diagnostic approach indicated confusion rather than thoroughness. Elena initiated the diagnostic sequence that would stress test the transmission under controlled conditions, recreating the operational parameters that triggered the intermittent power loss. Her systematic approach revealed understanding of complex systems troubleshooting that most technicians developed only through specialized training and extensive hands-on experience. Rodriguez positioned himself near the emergency shutdown controls, clearly expecting Elena's diagnostic procedures to create dangerous situations requiring immediate intervention. These high-pressure hydraulic systems can fail catastrophically when handled by inexperienced personnel. His confident assessment drew worried nods from other mechanics who had already decided Elena represented a safety hazard. The diagnostic data revealed pressure fluctuations in the torque converter circuit that occurred only during specific acceleration profiles, creating intermittent symptoms that had previously escaped detection. Elena's systematic monitoring approach had successfully isolated a problem that required sophisticated understanding of transmission hydraulics to identify and diagnose accurately. Morrison examined the diagnostic readouts with obvious surprise, clearly not expecting Elena's elaborate testing procedures to yield such specific and actionable results. These pressure variations could indicate several different component failures, Sergeant. Determining the exact cause will require additional testing with specialized equipment. His technical explanation suggested helpful guidance while questioning Elena's ability to proceed with complex troubleshooting. Elena traced the pressure fluctuations to their source within the torque converter assembly. Her analysis revealing component were patterns that created intermittent performance degradation under demanding operational conditions. Her diagnostic conclusion demonstrated mechanical insight that extended far beyond routine maintenance knowledge, though colleagues continued attributing her success to lucky guessing. "She'll never handle the torque converter replacement without backup," Corporal Hayes declared while Elena prepared specialized lifting equipment for the massive Abrams transmission component. Those assemblies weigh over 300 pounds and require precision handling that basic mechanics simply can't manage safely. Private Chun nodded enthusiastically, both men convinced that physical demands would finally expose Elena's limitations in dramatic fashion. Elena positioned hydraulic lifting equipment with methodical precision, her movements revealing familiarity with heavy component handling that extended beyond routine mechanical training. The torque converter represented one of the most challenging repairs in armored vehicle maintenance, requiring both technical expertise and physical capability that most mechanics developed only through years of specialized experience. Staff Sergeant Morrison approached carrying safety documentation and wearing an expression of helpful concern. "Sergeant, these torque converter procedures have specific safety requirements that must be followed exactly. Perhaps we should wait for additional personnel to assist with the lifting and positioning requirements." His suggestion carried clear implications about Elena's physical capability to handle such demanding work safely. Elena examined the torque converter mounting points with systematic thoroughness, her scarred hands tracing hydraulic connections and electrical interfaces that formed complex relationships throughout the transmission system. Her approach suggested understanding of component integration that required sophisticated knowledge of Abrams powertrains to navigate successfully. "Watch her struggle with those hydraulic couplings," Rodriguez whispered to his gathered audience, while Elena disconnected high-pressure lines feeding the torque converter assembly. "Real mechanics know those fittings can spray hydraulic fluid at pressures that cause serious injuries." Hayes agreed confidently, both men positioning themselves to witness what they anticipated would be dangerous mistakes caused by inexperience. Elena's movements through the hydraulic disconnection sequence followed proper safety protocols while maximizing efficiency, her hands revealing familiarity with high-pressure systems that demanded respect and expertise to handle without injury. Each connection she released followed established procedures that prevented pressure buildup and fluid spray, though observing colleagues remained convinced of her technical inadequacy. Morrison returned carrying additional safety equipment, setting it prominently beside Elena's work area. "These pressure relief procedures require specialized knowledge, Sergeant. Most mechanics need constant supervision when working with Abrams hydraulic systems for the first time." His helpful gesture masked growing surprise at Elena's systematic approach to complex safety requirements. The torque converter extraction required precise coordination between hydraulic lifting equipment and manual positioning to prevent component damage during removal. Elena operated the lifting controls with practiced confidence, her movements revealing mechanical sympathy that reflected deeper understanding than routine training typically provided to standard motor pool personnel. "She's going to drop that converter for sure," Chun predicted to Rodriguez while Elena maneuvered the massive component through the confined transmission compartment. "Those assemblies cost more than most people make in a year, and she's handling it like routine equipment." Rodriguez nodded agreement, both men convinced that expensive mistakes would finally demonstrate Elena's unsuitability for complex mechanical work. Elena guided the torque converter through its extraction path with millimeter precision, her movements accounting for clearance requirements and balance points that prevented damage to surrounding components. The heavy assembly moved under her guidance with controlled grace that impressed even skeptical observers, though they continued attributing her success to exceptional luck rather than genuine expertise. The replacement torque converter required careful inspection and preparation before installation, with tolerance specifications that demanded precision measurement and assembly techniques. Elena examined the new component with systematic thoroughness, her trained eye identifying potential issues that could cause premature failure under demanding operational conditions. Hayes positioned himself near the emergency controls, clearly expecting Elena's installation procedures to create dangerous situations requiring immediate intervention. These precision assemblies can bind during installation if handled improperly, causing hydraulic system damage that takes weeks to repair. His confident assessment drew worried nods from mechanics who had decided Elena represented an ongoing safety hazard. Elena's hands worked through the torque converter installation sequence with surgeon-like precision, each connection and adjustment following specifications that ensured optimal performance under the extreme conditions Abrams tanks routinely encountered. Her systematic approach revealed understanding of component relationships that extended far beyond basic mechanical knowledge. Morrison examined Elena's installation progress with obvious surprise, clearly not expecting such methodical precision from someone he considered technically inadequate. These final adjustments require specialized calibration procedures. Sergeant, perhaps we should consult the technical specialists before proceeding with system integration. His suggestion carried implications about Elena's ability to complete complex assembly work successfully. The hydraulic system integration required sequential pressurization procedures that tested each connection and interface under control conditions. Elena monitored pressure readings throughout the system with practiced attention to detail, her experience revealing familiarity with high-pressure diagnostics that most mechanics developed only through specialized training and extensive hands-on experience. Rodriguez checked his watch with obvious impatience, clearly expecting the complex installation process to bog down in technical difficulties that would vindicate his skeptical assessment. She's been working on that torque converter for 6 hours without requesting help. Stubborn pride will cause catastrophic failures when the hydraulic system fails under pressure testing. Elena completed the torque converter installation with methodical precision. Her attention focused on system integration details that ensured reliable performance under the demanding conditions Abrams tanks routinely encountered in operational environments. Each hydraulic connection achieved perfect sealing under her guidance, creating pressure-tight relationships that would withstand extreme operational stresses for thousands of hours. The hydraulic system pressurized flawlessly during initial testing, with pressure readings holding steady across all circuits despite the complexity of Elena's torque converter installation. Corporal Hayes stared at the diagnostic display, showing perfect system integration, clearly not expecting such precise work from someone he considered technically inadequate for advanced mechanical repairs. Words getting around about Wrench's lucky streaks, Rodriguez announced to the morning shift mechanics as Elena cleaned her tools after completing the Abrams repair. Colonel's planning a surprise inspection next week, and she'll be expected to demonstrate her diagnostic skills on unfamiliar equipment under direct observation. Private Chung grinned confidently, both men convinced that pressure testing would finally expose Elena's limitations. Staff Sergeant Morrison approached Elena's position carrying a new assignment folder, his expression mixing grudging acknowledgement of her recent successes with continued skepticism about her overall technical capabilities. Sergeant Vasquez, we have multiple priority repairs backing up across all vehicle types. Your next assignment involves the command post-communication vehicle with complete electrical system failure. Elena examined the assignment details with practiced attention, noting the complex integration of communication equipment, power systems, and vehicle electronics that created troubleshooting challenges beyond routine mechanical work. The communication vehicle represented a convergence of multiple technical disciplines that demanded expertise, extending far beyond standard motor pool training to diagnose and repair successfully. She'll spend days just mapping the electrical systems, Hayes predicted to his gathered audience while Elena approached the communication vehicle. Those command post units have custom wiring harnesses that basic mechanics can't even begin to understand. Rodriguez agreed enthusiastically, both men positioning themselves to witness what they anticipated would be Elena's most complex failure yet. The communication vehicle bristled with antennas, satellite dishes, and electronic equipment that created electromagnetic environments requiring specialized knowledge to navigate safely. Elena circled the vehicle with systematic thoroughness, her trained eye identifying potential interference sources and grounding requirements that could affect diagnostic accuracy. Morrison returned carrying technical manuals specific to military communication systems, dropping them prominently beside Elena's work area. These electronic systems require specialized test equipment and procedures that most mechanics never encounter, Sergeant. Perhaps we should consider requesting support from the electronic specialist for this particular repair. Elena gathered diagnostic equipment with practiced efficiency, her tool selection revealing familiarity with electronic troubleshooting techniques that extended beyond basic electrical knowledge. Her movements suggested understanding of complex systems integration that most technicians developed only through specialized training in military communication technology. Watch her get confused by those signal routing diagrams. Chen whispered to Rodriguez while Elena examined the vehicle's electronic architecture. Real communication technicians spend months learning those systems, and she's trying to troubleshoot everything without proper training. Rodriguez nodded agreement. Both men convinced that electronic complexity would expose dangerous gaps in Elena's technical knowledge. Elena's scarred hands traced electrical pathways through the vehicle's communication systems with methodical precision, her fingertips reading connection integrity and signal quality indicators that revealed the complete story of the electrical failure. Each component she examined told part of a technical narrative that explained cascading system failures affecting multiple communication functions. The electrical failure patterns suggested problems with the primary power distribution system, creating voltage fluctuations that damaged sensitive electronic components throughout the communication array. Elena's systematic analysis revealed understanding of power system design that required sophisticated knowledge of military electrical standards to diagnose accurately. She's way over her head with this electrical complexity, Hayes observed to Morrison while Elena prepared voltage measurement equipment. Real electronics technicians would have isolated the problem area by now instead of checking every single circuit systematically. Morrison nodded skeptically, both men convinced that Elena's methodical approach indicated confusion rather than thoroughness. Elena positioned monitoring equipment at strategic points throughout the electrical system, creating a comprehensive diagnostic network that would identify intermittent failures and voltage irregularities affecting communication performance. Her systematic approach revealed understanding of complex electronics troubleshooting that most technicians developed only through specialized training and extensive hands-on experience. Rodriguez positioned himself near the main electrical disconnect, clearly expecting Elena's diagnostic procedures to create dangerous electrical situations requiring immediate intervention. These high-voltage communication systems can cause serious injuries when handled by inexperienced personnel. His confident assessment drew worried nods from other mechanics who had decided Elena represented a significant safety hazard. The diagnostic sequence revealed voltage spikes in the primary power distribution that occurred during communication equipment startup, creating electrical stress that had gradually damaged multiple electronic components throughout the system. Elena's comprehensive monitoring approach had successfully isolated problems that required sophisticated understanding of electrical system integration to identify accurately. Morrison examined the diagnostic data with obvious surprise, clearly not expecting Elena's elaborate testing procedures to yield such specific and actionable results about the electrical failures. These voltage irregularities could indicate problems anywhere in the power distribution system, Sergeant. Isolating the exact source will require specialized knowledge of military electrical standards. Elena traced the voltage spikes to their source within the main power conditioning unit, her analysis revealing component degradation that created intermittent electrical stress affecting the entire communication system. Her diagnostic conclusion demonstrated electrical expertise that extended far beyond routine maintenance knowledge, though colleagues continued attributing her success to fortunate guessing rather than genuine technical competence. Colonel Harrison arrives tomorrow for his quarterly inspection, Staff Sergeant Morrison announced to the assembled motor pool personnel. He'll be conducting random skill assessments on selected mechanics, testing diagnostic abilities under direct observation. Morrison's eyes fixed meaningfully on Elena, while other mechanics exchanged knowing glances about who would likely be chosen for evaluation. $20, says wrench cracks under pressure when the colonel watches her work, Corporal Hayes whispered to Private Chun during the morning briefing. Real mechanics perform consistently regardless of who's observing, but she'll probably forget everything she thinks she knows. Chun nodded eagerly, both men convinced that authoritative scrutiny would finally expose Elena's technical inadequacy. Elena continued her electrical repairs on the communication vehicle, systematically replacing damaged components while mentally preparing for tomorrow's inspection. The power conditioning unit required precise installation procedures that would demonstrate her understanding of military electrical standards under the most demanding circumstances possible. Rodriguez gathered a group of skeptical mechanics near the tool crib, his voice carrying across the motor pool with confident predictions about Elena's upcoming performance. Watch her fumble with basic procedures when she has to explain her work to someone who actually knows what they're talking about. The colonel will see right through whatever lucky streak she's been riding. The electrical system restoration demanded millimeter-perfect connections and precise voltage calibrations that would test every aspect of Elena's technical knowledge under direct observation. Her scarred hands moved through the installation sequence with practiced precision, each connection achieving optimal electrical integrity despite the psychological pressure building around tomorrow's evaluation. Morrison approached Elena's position, carrying inspection protocols and wearing an expression of helpful guidance, mixed with obvious skepticism. Sergeant, the colonel expects mechanics to articulate their diagnostic reasoning clearly while demonstrating proper procedures. Perhaps you should review the technical manuals tonight to refresh your knowledge of official terminology. Elena completed the power conditioning unit installation with methodical attention to detail, her movements revealing familiarity with military electrical standards that extended far beyond basic training. The complex electronic relationships fell into place under her guidance with practiced ease, though observing colleagues attributed her systematic approach to nervous preparation rather than genuine expertise. Hayes positioned himself near Elena's work area, clearly anticipating tomorrow's inspection with malicious satisfaction. Real mechanics welcome observation because they're confident in their abilities. Watch her avoid eye contact and fumble with explanations when she has to justify her diagnostic decisions to someone with actual expertise. The communication system integration required sequential testing procedures that would validate each electronic component under the comprehensive scrutiny Elena would face tomorrow. Her systematic approach revealed understanding of complex electronics troubleshooting that most technicians developed only through specialized training and extensive practical experience. Chun leaned closer to Rodriguez, lowering his voice while remaining audible to Elena's position. $50 says she requests assignment to different equipment when she realizes the colonel will be watching her every move. Smart mechanics know their limitations and don't volunteer for public humiliation. Rodriguez agreed enthusiastically, both men convinced that impending scrutiny would break Elena's apparent confidence. Elena powered up the communication system for final testing, her movements revealing no hesitation about demonstrating her work under the most demanding evaluation conditions possible. Each electronic component achieved optimal performance parameters under her guidance, creating integrated functionality that would impress even the most skeptical observers. Morrison returned carrying evaluation criteria that outlined specific performance standards the colonel would use during tomorrow's inspection. These assessments measure not just technical competence, but also professional bearing under pressure. Sergeant, many experienced mechanics struggle when required to perform complex diagnostics while articulating their reasoning to superior officers. The final system calibration required precise adjustments that would demonstrate Elena's understanding of military communication standards under direct observation. Her hands moved through the calibration sequence with surgeon-like precision, each parameter achieving optimal specifications that exceeded routine performance requirements. Rodriguez checked his watch with obvious anticipation, clearly looking forward to tomorrow's inspection as vindication of his skeptical assessment. She's been avoiding conversation all day because she knows tomorrow will expose everything. Real mechanics discuss their work confidently instead of hiding behind silent concentration. Elena completed the communication system restoration with comprehensive attention to every detail that would be scrutinized during tomorrow's evaluation. The complex electronic integration functioned flawlessly under her guidance, creating communication capabilities that met the highest military operational standards. Hayes gathered his betting pool participants near the parts counter, their voices carrying across the motor pool with confident predictions about Elena's upcoming performance under pressure. 2010 odds, she requests sick leave tomorrow morning. Smart Money says she'll find some excuse to avoid the Colonel's inspection rather than face public exposure of her technical limitations. The motor pool fell unusually quiet as mechanics prepared for tomorrow's inspection, most anticipating Elena's evaluation with mixture of curiosity and malicious satisfaction. Elena secured her tools with practiced efficiency, her movements revealing no anxiety about demonstrating her capabilities under the most demanding scrutiny possible from superior officers who understood advanced mechanical and electronic systems. Colonel Harrison strode into the motor pool at precisely 0800 hours, his imposing presence immediately commanding attention from every mechanic in the facility. Staff Sergeant Morrison snapped to attention while casting meaningful glances toward Elena's workstation, clearly anticipating the moment when the Colonel would witness what he assumed would be a spectacular demonstration of technical inadequacy. Sergeant Vasquez, front and center, the Colonel commanded in a voice that carried absolute authority throughout the motor pool. I understand you've been handling some of our more challenging repair assignments recently. Today you'll demonstrate your diagnostic capabilities on equipment you've never seen before under direct observation and evaluation. Elena approached the Colonel's position with steady confidence, her bearing revealing no anxiety about performing under the most demanding scrutiny possible. Behind her, Corporal Hayes whispered urgent final bets to Private Chun about the specific ways Elena would fail when faced with unfamiliar equipment and authoritative pressure. The Colonel gestured toward a covered vehicle in the corner bay, its mysterious bulk hidden beneath military canvas that concealed whatever technical challenge awaited Elena's evaluation. This is a prototype reconnaissance vehicle with multiple system failures that have stumped our best technicians for the past month. You have 1 hour to diagnose the primary problems and recommend solutions. Rodriguez positioned himself with optimal viewing angles, clearly anticipating the moment when Elena would crack under pressure and expose her technical limitations to the most important observer possible. Real mechanics thrive under observation, he murmured to his gathered audience, but watch her confidence evaporate when she realizes she's completely out of her depth. Elena approached the covered vehicle with systematic preparation, gathering diagnostic equipment, while the Colonel positioned himself to observe every aspect of her performance. The canvas covering fell away to reveal a sleek reconnaissance vehicle bristling with advanced technology that represented the cutting edge of military engineering. The prototype vehicle contained electronic systems, advanced powertrains, and sensor arrays that pushed beyond conventional military technology into experimental realms that would challenge even the most experienced technicians. Elena circled the vehicle with methodical thoroughness, her trained eye identifying systems integration challenges that required sophisticated understanding to navigate successfully. Morrison leaned closer to the Colonel, clearly preparing to explain Elena's inevitable confusion when faced with technology beyond her experience level. Sir, this vehicle incorporates experimental systems that most mechanics have never encountered. Perhaps we should provide additional technical support for this particular evaluation. Elena's scarred hands traced electronic pathways and mechanical connections throughout the prototype vehicle with practiced confidence, her movements revealing familiarity with advanced technology that surprised observing personnel. The Colonel watched her systematic approach with growing interest, noting the precision and methodology that characterized her diagnostic technique. She's going to embarrass herself trying to troubleshoot systems she's never seen before, Hayes predicted to Chun while Elena prepared specialized diagnostic equipment. Real mechanics admit their limitations instead of pretending to understand experimental technology. Chun nodded agreement, both men convinced that unfamiliar equipment would finally expose Elena's technical inadequacy. Elena connected diagnostic interfaces to the prototype's electronic systems with practiced efficiency, her tool selection revealing understanding of advanced military technology that extended far beyond standard motor pool training. Each connection she made followed proper protocols while maximizing diagnostic accuracy, though skeptical observers remained convinced of her inevitable failure. The diagnostic sequence revealed complex system interactions that created cascading failures throughout the prototype's integrated technology array. Elena's systematic analysis identified problem patterns that required sophisticated understanding of experimental military systems to interpret accurately, though colleagues attributed her methodical approach to desperate improvisation. Colonel Harrison observed Elena's diagnostic procedures with professional interest, clearly noting the systematic methodology and technical precision that characterized her approach to unfamiliar equipment. His expression revealed growing surprise at the competence level displayed by someone he had expected to struggle with advanced technology. Rodriguez checked his watch with obvious anticipation, expecting Elena's diagnostic efforts to bog down in technical confusion that would vindicate his skeptical assessment. 30 minutes gone, and she's still pretending to understand those experimental systems. Real mechanics would have admitted defeat by now instead of wasting the colonel's valuable time. Elena traced system failures to their source within the prototype's advanced sensor array, her analysis revealing component degradation that created interference patterns affecting multiple integrated systems. Her diagnostic conclusion demonstrated understanding of experimental technology that impressed even the most skeptical observers, though they continued attributing her success to exceptional luck. The colonel stepped closer to Elena's position, examining her diagnostic data with professional evaluation of her technical methodology and systematic approach to complex problem-solving. Sir, she's identified problems that our specialist technicians missed during previous evaluations. Her analysis appears comprehensive and technically accurate. Morrison stared at Elena's diagnostic results with obvious disbelief, clearly not expecting such sophisticated analysis from someone he considered technically inadequate for routine repairs. The prototype's experimental systems had defeated experienced technicians for weeks, yet Elena's systematic approach had successfully isolated multiple critical problems within the allotted time frame. Impressive diagnostic work, Sergeant, Colonel Harrison acknowledged while examining Elena's comprehensive analysis of the prototype vehicle's multiple system failures. However, I need to verify something before we proceed further. He stepped closer to her position, his trained military eye focusing intently on details that others had overlooked throughout months of casual observation. Elena maintained professional attention while the colonel studied her hands with systematic thoroughness, his experienced gaze reading stories written in scars, calluses, and markings that revealed training far beyond standard motor pool assignments. Staff Sergeant Morrison watched nervously, clearly uncertain why the colonel's inspection had shifted from technical evaluation to personal examination. "Those are interesting scars on your knuckles, Sergeant," the colonel observed with growing recognition in his voice. "Very specific patterns that suggest specialized equipment handling under demanding conditions." Behind him, Corporal Hayes and Private Chun exchanged confused glances, not understanding why hand examination had become relevant to mechanical evaluation. Elena's scarred fingertips showed precise markings that came only from handling specialized tools and weapons under extreme operational conditions. The colonel's trained eye recognized patterns invisible to casual observers, noting callus formations and injury traces that told complete stories about advanced technical training in classified environments. Rodriguez leaned closer to his gathered audience, whispering urgent commentary about the unexpected direction of the inspection. Why is the colonel examining her hands instead of focusing on her diagnostic mistakes? Real mechanics don't need personal inspection to validate their technical capabilities. His confident assessment carried less conviction than previous predictions. Colonel Harrison traced specific scar patterns with professional recognition, his expression revealing growing certainty about conclusions that would transform everyone's understanding of Elena's true background and capabilities. These markings indicate extensive experience with precision equipment under combat conditions, Sergeant. Very few personnel develop such specific injury patterns. The motor pool fell unusually quiet as mechanics sensed the shifting dynamic between Colonel Harrison and Elena. Though none understood the significance of the detailed hand examination that was revealing secrets hidden for months beneath routine motor pool assignments. Elena maintained steady composure while the colonel's inspection continued with systematic thoroughness. Morrison stepped closer to observe the colonel's examination, clearly confused by the intense focus on physical details that seemed irrelevant to mechanical evaluation. "Sir, perhaps we should return to assessing her technical capabilities rather than personal characteristics." His suggestion carried nervous uncertainty about the inspection's unexpected direction. "Those calluses are from specialized weapons handling." The colonel continued with growing recognition in his voice. "Combined with these precision tool marks and combat injury patterns, they suggest advanced technical training in classified operations." He paused, his expression revealing complete certainty about conclusions that would shock every observing mechanic. Elena's hands told stories of training that extended far beyond conventional military mechanical assignments, with markings that revealed expertise in specialized equipment under operational conditions that most personnel never encountered. The colonel's recognition of these indicators suggested knowledge about classified programs and advanced technical capabilities. Hayes whispered urgent questions to Chun about the strange examination procedure, both men confused by the colonel's intense focus on Elena's hands rather than her diagnostic performance. Why isn't he discussing her technical mistakes? Real inspections focus on mechanical competence, not personal physical examination. Chin nodded agreement, both men sensing something significant was developing. Colonel Harrison stepped back from his detailed examination, his expression revealing complete recognition of what Elena's physical indicators represented. The motor pool waited in suspense while he processed information that would fundamentally change their understanding of the mechanic they had consistently underestimated and dismissed. Shadow 7. The colonel whispered with unmistakable recognition and respect in his voice. The two words fell into absolute silence that stretched across the entire motor pool like a physical force. Every mechanic froze in position, their tools suspended mid-motion as the legendary call sign registered with shocking impact. Rodriguez's confident expression crumbled into disbelief, while Hayes and Chun stared with mouths open, their betting pool forgotten in the face of impossible revelation. Morrison's clipboard clattered to the concrete floor, the sound echoing through silence so complete that even distant vehicle noise seemed muted. His expression shifted from skeptical supervision to stunned recognition as the implications of the colonel's whispered identification transformed his entire understanding of Elena's true identity and capabilities. Elena maintained professional bearing while the motor pool processed the revelation that Wrench, the consistently underestimated mechanic they had dismissed and mocked for months, was actually Shadow 7. A legendary special operations technician whose expertise in combat equipment maintenance had saved countless lives in classified missions throughout multiple theaters of operation. The colonel's posture shifted to unmistakable respect as he addressed Elena with the recognition her true identity deserved. "Your technical capabilities during combat operations are legendary throughout special operations communities, Sergeant. I should have recognized the precision and methodology that characterizes your approach to complex mechanical challenges from our very first observation." The silence stretched for 10 seconds that felt like hours before Colonel Harrison's voice cut through the stunned atmosphere with unmistakable authority. Shadow 7 maintained critical equipment for Delta Force, Navy SEALs, and classified special operations units across 3 combat theaters. Her technical expertise kept advanced weapons systems operational under conditions that would destroy conventional equipment. Staff Sergeant Morrison stared at Elena with transformed understanding, his months of skeptical supervision suddenly revealed as profound ignorance about the legendary technician working under his command. "Sir, I had no idea. We've been treating her like a basic mechanic when she's been maintaining equipment that most of us have never even seen." His voice carried shame and embarrassment that echoed throughout the motor pool. Corporal Hayes approached Elena's position with obvious reluctance, his confident predictions about her technical inadequacy now revealed as spectacular misjudgments about someone whose expertise exceeded his understanding. Sergeant, I owe you an apology. We've been completely wrong about your capabilities, and I'm sorry for doubting your technical knowledge. His words carried genuine remorse for months of dismissive treatment. Elena accepted their recognition with professional grace, her bearing revealing the quiet confidence that had sustained her through months of underestimation and mockery. The same hands they had watched fumble with routine repairs had actually maintained life-critical equipment under combat conditions that tested every aspect of advanced technical training. Private Chin gathered his betting pool money with obvious embarrassment, clearly recognizing the absurdity of wagering against someone whose technical expertise had been proven in operational environments that most mechanics could never imagine. We were betting against a legend, he admitted to Rodriguez. Every repair we watch her complete was probably routine work compared to what she's done in combat zones. Colonel Harrison addressed the assembled motor pool personnel with the authority of someone who understood the significance of Elena's true identity and capabilities. Shadow 7's technical contributions during Operation Neptune Shield kept critical reconnaissance equipment operational during the most challenging mission profiles our forces have ever attempted. Her expertise saved lives that depended on equipment functioning flawlessly under extreme conditions. Rodriguez approached Elena with obvious respect, his dismissive attitude completely transformed by recognition of her legendary status within special operations communities. Sergeant, I've heard stories about Shadow 7's technical miracles during combat operations. We never imagined we were working alongside someone whose expertise is discussed in classified briefings at the highest levels. The motor pool dynamics shifted permanently as mechanics recognized that their consistent underestimation had targeted someone whose technical achievements exceeded their collective experience. Elena's systematic approach to complex repairs now revealed itself as methodology developed through advanced training and proven under the most demanding operational conditions possible. Morrison gathered the work assignment folders with obvious uncertainty about future repair distributions, clearly recognizing that Elena's capabilities extended far beyond routine motor pool assignments. Sir, should we be utilizing Shadow 7's expertise on more advanced technical challenges rather than standard vehicle maintenance? His question carried implications about resource allocation and proper utilization of legendary technical skills. Elena's tools took on new significance as mechanics realized they had watched specialized equipment handling techniques developed through classified training programs. Every repair they had observed represented application of advanced methodologies that most military technicians never encountered during conventional assignments. Hayes examined Elena's completed repairs with transformed perspective, recognizing that her systematic approach and precision reflected training standards that exceeded routine military technical education. Everything makes sense now. The way she approached complex problems, her diagnostic methodology, the precision of her assembly work. We were watching advanced special operations techniques applied to routine repairs. The prototype vehicle diagnostic that had impressed Colonel Harrison now revealed itself as routine application of technical expertise developed through maintaining far more sophisticated equipment under combat conditions. Elena's comprehensive analysis had succeeded where specialist technicians failed because her training exceeded conventional military technical standards. Before we conclude Elena's story, if you enjoyed learning about how hidden expertise can transform perceptions, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite moment from her journey. Or share if you've witnessed similar situations where someone's true capabilities surprised everyone around them. Chin approached Elena with obvious admiration, his previous skepticism completely replaced by respect for someone whose technical achievements had become legendary within classified military communities. Sergeant, thank you for your patience with our ignorance. We've learned more about advanced technical methodology by watching you work than we ever learned through conventional training programs. Colonel Harrison concluded his inspection with official recognition of Elena's exceptional service record and technical contributions during classified operations. Shadow 7's expertise represents the highest standards of military technical excellence. Her presence in this motor pool provides training opportunities that most mechanics never receive during entire careers. Elena secured her tools with the same methodical precision that had characterized her work throughout months of underestimation. Her movements now recognized as applications of advanced techniques rather than routine mechanical procedures. The motor pool had gained permanent respect for someone whose technical expertise exceeded their collective understanding. The betting pools and dismissive comments ended permanently as mechanics recognized their extraordinary fortune in working alongside someone whose technical achievements had saved lives during the most challenging special operations missions. Elena's quiet competence had transformed an entire facility's understanding of excellence, precision, and the dangerous assumptions people make about capabilities hidden beneath routine assignments. Shadow 7 had taught them that legends sometimes work quietly among us, waiting for recognition that reveals truth about expertise that exceeds every expectation.